And good afternoon. Welcome. Just hanging with my friend Jack here. And we want to talk about some issues. First of all, before we go down that road, I want to remind everybody that our logo wear offerings, there are a lot of great stuff. I got my jackets that I ordered at the company meeting back in September. They both fit great. They're great quality. Really tickled with how they turned out. So I encourage you, if you're going to get some, like winter sort of logo wear, it's a great time to do it. Eric and I have, we've sort of discovered that we get topics or issues in rashes, and sort of like they group themselves together somehow. I don't know, quite understand that dynamic, but it happens. And one of the questions that we've gotten a lot of lately is on matters of discrimination. What is discrimination? And what do we do about it when we find or suspect that there has been discrimination? First of all, a discrimination is something that you need to define, because not everything out there is discrimination. In fact, for an example, it's not illegal to discriminate against people who drive blue cars. It's not illegal to discriminate based on someone's occupation. If they don't want to live next to a mechanic or a doctor, that's not discrimination. It is discrimination, however, if they discriminate on the basis of a same-sex marriage, race, religion, ethnic background, and so on. And very often, we don't know for sure whether there is an issue of an instance of discrimination or not. We may suspect that there is an issue. For example, a seller who is very conservative might have a couple of buyers who are walk into an open house that they are present at, and it's obvious that this couple is a same-sex couple, and they submit an offer, and the sellers say, well, we're against that. We're not going to accept their offer because they are a same-sex couple. It's clearly an issue of discrimination. What do you do with that? Well, I'm going to tell you that proving a discrimination suit, first of all, the first step is to direct your client to the Fair Housing Authority so that they can take up the matter and do the investigation. We don't want to become involved in investigating. We're going to provide whatever evidence we have, whatever information we find available within our records. We're going to provide that and be cooperative. But it's really up to the fair housing folks to identify whether or not a violation has occurred. And so we would suggest that you direct your clients to fair housing if they feel as though they have been unfairly discriminated against. The flip side is also true. Let's pretend that a seller is a minority or has religious beliefs that are not necessarily mainstream. For example, a seller may believe in the Wiccan religion. A buyer may walk into the house and find that they perceive that this particular religion is pagan, and they're not going to buy the house. What happens then? Does the seller have a discrimination claim against the buyer? Well, that's a really tricky question, because if they have expressed that the reason that they're not buying the house is they don't agree with, or it's because the sellers have a different religion than them, then the case might be made that they've exercised discrimination. What are the damages? I don't know. But very often with fair housing cases, the damage isn't in the price of the property or the seller's ability to sell, but it's just a flat fine for violating the law. So, can a agent be discriminated against? Well, again, discrimination is discrimination. If an agent perceives that his or her clients, are being discriminated against because he or she is a minority or in a protected class, then the agent may be able to file a discrimination action against the sellers if they feel as though they've not given them. For example, agent may be in a wheelchair. They come to the house to look at a showing. The agent inside says, well, we can't give you access because you're in a wheelchair. And right at that moment, that agent is being discriminated against, and in essence, his buyers are being discriminated against, and that seller better be ready for a discrimination lawsuit because their agent has in fact violated the law. So I caution you, when you encounter discrimination issues, that it's our job to protect the law. It's our job to help enforce the law. That doesn't mean that we become attorneys. It doesn't mean that we go and we take them by the hand down to fair housing and say, file a complaint. We give them the information that allows them to file a complaint, but it's not our complaint. We are a witness, nothing more. Unless we ourselves, the agent, is the one who is being discriminated against. So I caution you, especially agents in areas where sellers may have conservative views and don't agree with some of the laws which have been passed in recent years, and they choose to discriminate based on, for example, same-sex marriage, gender, sexual orientation or identification. So all of those things you have to be very, very careful about as you're out there, not only showing houses, but also representing your sellers. So I hope that helps. It's always good to know. I'll make you a deal. Here's the deal. If you can name in our comment section under this, and we'll give you till tomorrow morning, because I know some of you watch it later. But if you can name all of the protected classes under the federal discrimination law, if you can name all the protected classes accurately, I will give you the pumpkin jack here. It might have to be a drawing if more than one gets it right. But this is a very, 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 very valuable pumpkin, and I apologize for selling you out so easily, Jack, but that's life. And you're a pumpkin. So anyway, I hope that helps. let's try it. Let's see how many people can get all of the those in the protected classes. Hint, Google it. Okay, item 2. Very interesting issue that came up about writing an addendum regarding inspections. House is listed to sell as is, okay? And in the course of negotiating, the seller wrote a counteroffer. And the counteroffer said, and this is my understanding, having gone through this over the telephone, which is not always completely accurate. Thank you, Mary. It is a very nice pumpkin. Cost me like $5. I mean, seriously. Anyway, in the course of going through this transaction where the house was listed to sell as is, the counteroffer specifically stated that if the buyer, that they would accept the buyer's offer, provided, and that they were allowed to have inspections, and provided they didn't ask for repairs as a result of those inspections. Let me say that one more time. The seller countered by saying they accepted the buyer's offer provided the buyer did not ask for inspections afterward. Okay? It didn't say that they couldn't terminate the offer afterwards. It simply said that they couldn't ask for repairs. Now, again, I've gotten a couple of different versions of this story, so I want to be careful here. But it's my understanding that the buyer, after going through the house and doing the inspections, said, you know, there's really a lot of stuff there, a lot of repairs, and we want to buy the house, but we really need to have these things repaired. And so they submitted an addendum. And the seller accepted their addendum. Next day, the buyer wakes up and says, you know, I've got second thoughts. It's day 8. We're still within the 10-day inspection period. I'm going to terminate the offer. And so they send over a mutual release terminating the offer, awarding the earnest money deposit to the buyer. The seller responds saying, no. The earnest deposit goes to the seller because you violated the terms of the contract. You were in breach of contract the moment that you sent over that addendum, because the contract said you weren't going to do that. Now, you had a right to terminate the contract, but by sending over the addendum, you violated the terms of the contract. Now, we've gone back and forth with a number of the parties that were involved in this, and when that sort of thing happens, I get on the phone with Gail Anderson, as I did this morning. And I ran this scenario past her. And here's what Gail said, and I want you to listen very, very carefully to this. Here's what Gail said. If the buyer had simply terminated the offer after the inspections, they would have had the right to get their earnest deposit back if they had simply terminated. The fact that they asked for inspections, asked for repairs, after they specifically agreed not to, did in fact put them in a position of being in breach of contract. However, the moment that seller signed that contract, that addendum, that eliminated the seller's right to claim breach of contract because the buyer submitted an addendum when they said they wouldn't. The question on the table for many people is, didn't that addendum, didn't that 10-day window of inspections, wasn't that still fully in place, fully enforceable, even though they had negotiated a repair addendum? And Gail's answer was no. The moment that they amended the contract through that addendum, that canceled out the remaining 3 days of the inspection contingency. That once they came down to that and agreed that the seller was going to do some repairs, that they were that 10-day inspection window was gone. Now, let me explain that is a legal interpretation which could be challenged, in my view. And Gail agreed, it could be challenged. Here's what you can't challenge. You can't challenge words written on paper and signed. So if the buyer had said at some point, for example, that our acceptance of this counter offer does not in any way waive our right to terminate this offer or to ask for repairs as a result of the inspections, then they would not have had this issue if they had clearly spelled it out. By the same token, if the seller's agent had said this offer is this home is being sold as is, and once inspections have been performed and accepted, the 10-day window, or the window for inspections, whether it's 10 or 15 or whatever it is, shall be considered satisfied, and the buyer will be moving forward. Again, clarifying, adding a lot of language sometimes to make sure that we're protecting both our buyers and our sellers. And to remember, and one of the things that I write, for example, is my buyer, after inspections, buyer accepts home as is, provided the seller does these things, fixes a window and a door and whatever. In doing that, it says I have waived the remaining inspection period, or period of, for investigations and inspections, and I am moving forward providing that they're going to fix these things. Now, could my buyer wake up the next morning and say, you know what, I'm really worried about the furnace, we didn't address that in the addendum, and so I want you to send over a termination of the contract? Can they do that even though they're within the 10 days? Again, Gail's position is no, they couldn't. That they have waived, they have accepted the house as is, provided they do these things. They have essentially amended the contract. So be very careful. When you are writing a repair addendum, make it very clear if your buyer wants to retain that period of time within the inspection period, the 10 days or 15 days or whatever it is, if they want to retain the right to terminate the contract within that inspection period, you got to write it down. You got to make sure that it is clear that all parties understand what the rules are. So, again, I don't want to lose my friend Jack, okay? But if y'all can write down the all of the protected classes of discrimination, Jack's up for grabs, okay? I mean, nice pumpkin and all, but you know, this is more important. So I wish you all a great day. It's a relatively short session, but I hope we had some good information to share with you. And don't forget to buy your logo wear. Sign up for the Christmas party. It's going to be great, and all that stuff. So till next Monday, thanks for joining.